Alright, today we're gonna do the big video I was planning to do all along and haven't been able to get the final fifth machine for. As you know, I've been posting a lot of videos about the Nec Versa laptop, so here's all 5. Because I'm kind of getting to a point where I want to cut down to just the ones I'm using, and nah, the Ultralite is kind of, it's a pain. So we're going to kind of just talk about the ones I've got and also maybe just discuss the Ultralite a little bit. So let's talk about these a little bit first off. So Vision did a good run over of like the history of these. Basically put NEC is Nippon Electric Company, now known as NEC Inc. now, or NEC Technologies. Based out of Japan. They're probably one of the top. They're like, I consider NEC the IBM of Japan. That's one of the reasons I got into these. It's because of NEC kind of being like a Japanese IBM is the way I look at it. I mean, they've got all these supercomputer projects and things like that. So if you want to go look it up on Wikipedia, you can. This is going to be more focus on these, both as a retro DOS user and a retro gamer in general. So what we have here is 4 of the 5, one of each from 4 of the 5 generations of the PC4XX, PC5XX generation NEC Versa. We have the Versa E right here, which is undergoing a screen transplant, so I won't be showing the screen on it. We have the Versa V over here, which is a V50, just like Vision's. Right here we have a Versa M75, probably my second favorite, sometimes my first favorite, depends on my mood. And then the Versa P, which is the 1 Pentium model they made. And these were made along with the Ultralite version, which doesn't have the trackball, between 1993 and 1995. Anyway, the original release was one known as the NEC Ultralite Versa. But yeah, so the earliest ones had a black label that said NEC, that just said Ultralite Versa on them. And they basically look the same as this 1994 Versa E here, except a little bit different. First off, up front, the front of the case up here where the trackball is was completely different. It was completely blank, and this body line here where the screen is covering, this body line here just went completely around, and you had the same push button release, or at least it looked like it from the outside, completely different mechanism inside. Another way to tell it apart, it had 2 sliders up front here in the center of the bottom, right there and there, instead of one over here and one over there like the later models. And the model numbers for those, they came with a 20 megahertz, a 25 megahertz, and a 33 megahertz processor. The 20 megahertz was known as the PC400, the 25 PC410, and the 33 PC430. They also were marketed under the NCR brand as the NCR 3180. You can find Ultralites on eBay. They usually sell for... I've never seen one actually sell. There are 2 up there right now. There's a NEC Versa, Ultralite Versa PC410 that has a broken screen hinge, and then there's a PC400 that someone's asking like $206 for. And it's got the monochrome screen on it. And that's sort of the thing with it is people don't know what they're worth because nobody really wants those because they're older. But we're going to go into what made the NEC Versa series so special. So the real, Vision calls it a party trick, and B-Bishop PCM was 100% dead on right when he said that these things were intended for a touchscreen. So we're going to go over the screen options. Screen option number 1 was the Kyocera 9.4-inch monochrome DTSN LCD panel. You can tell when it has one of those because there's a couple differences. There's a bump in the back here, like the 3180 or PC400 I'm showing, and whatever overlay pictures I put on this video. It has a bump here. The screen's a bit thinner, and there's 2 sliders over here instead of 1. I've even seen the actual panel that goes into those on eBay. It was going for about 20 bucks. It's really not what you'd want if you were doing retro PC gaming. And the reason why is because not just do you not have color, but you also have the whole streaking problem that comes with dual scan screens. Another variant of that screen that existed is the touch version, and I've never seen it. And that seems to be the real unicorn of the NEC Versa, is the touchscreen monochrome one. I've seen more color Versas with touch than any of it. I've never seen a monochrome one. Then you had the color screen. On these removable screen Versas, there was initially only one option, which was the 640 by 480 9.4 inch active matrix TFT LCD like this Versa E had in it, which right now is in my M75. It was a 3-wire, and that was one of the reasons I picked these laptops up, is those screens are also not just used in the NEC Versa, but they're used in industrial applications for machines like injection molders and computer-controlled welding machines and stuff like that. So they're still readily available in 2021, and they generally, if you find a good supplier, they don't cost that much. I think like the most expensive ones I've seen are over 200, and the cheapest ones have been anywhere from 25 bucks to 55, 58 bucks with free shipping, and that's pretty darn good for a 1990s laptop almost 30 years later to have that kind of screen availability. And the nice thing about the LCDs, here's another one on my V50. This uses the exact same screen. Is they're very bright, they're very readable. They don't have a whole lot of problems, really. I think like the worst thing, the version on the V50 and the version that you get typically with an M75, the AC. There were multiple revisions of this panel. There was the NL6448 AC3003, which was used on the original Ultralites. That one seemed to work just fine. The AC3006, which is what my E had and is now in my M75, and I'm getting another one for the E. And then there's the 10 that I've seen, which is in the V50 here and what comes in some of the M75s. And then there was a 12 that was in my M75 that needed a special wiring harness and a special video chip adapter thingy on the motherboard to work. And even when it did, it was like shifting the image down. Real pain in the ass, really, with it once you get to the later screens. By the time you get to the M75 and P75, we'll talk about 800, SID by 600, and all that. Anyway, these initially were only offered with the Kyocera monochrome and the Active Matrix 2 screens. The touch was announced at introduction time in 1993 for the Ultralite, but it was not actually released until sometime in late 1993. And it might help someone figure out the date on one of these machines, how old it is. We're going to talk going on with the Ultralite, but otherwise Ultralite's pretty much the same as this Versa E here. I mean, you had a different badge there, but the screen assembly is almost exactly the same. I think the plastics on the original is darker and a little more brittle, and that's why I'm kind of hesitant to pick another one up, because I picked one up and it literally like fell apart on the way here. Like literally everything was crushed. If I glued it back together, it looked like it was made out of marble, all the cracks everywhere. So I've decided just to stick with these, and not blow any more cash on old laptops. I've got enough. So anyway, we've got this one, and this is the second generation, right after the Ultralite, the Versa E. Oh yeah, and I didn't go into the price. So the original price for these, and I'm going to tell you, this is why you never saw anyone back in the day using an Ultralite Versa or a Versa E or a Versa M or any of these laptops, is these were basically the also ran to IBM's ThinkPad. When the original Ultralite was released in 1993, PC Mag said it literally ran circles around all the competition and graphics performance. Other than the cracking plastic, I have no idea why these aren't more popular with retro gamers. I mean, these things do pretty much punch above their weight class as laptops. They do not act like a laptop. They act like a decent VLB desktop 486 system. Anyway, we're going to talk more about expandability on the E because I have it here. But yeah, there was the early version Ultralite, no mouse, PC 400, 410, 430. Remember that. The Versa E came out, I think, sometime in December 93, maybe early 94. This one's a 1994, made around March 94. And like I said, you wouldn't see an average person using one of these. These were usually business-owned laptops. Every one of these that I've seen, save for a few, were either owned by a hospital, like my M75 that's used with that AAC unit over there. They use for chicken nuggets and honey mustard. I had I wrote a song and used that with auto-tune. And it was the Versa M75 controlling at that time. So basically, these were high-end laptops. The pricing was anywhere between $2,500 for a monochrome model with an 80 meg hard drive and 4 megs of RAM, which meant there was no memory card in it, and a floppy drive and a battery. And then you went all the way up to around almost $6,000 for the 33 megahertz model with touch, with a 320 megabyte hard drive and 20 megs of RAM. And I mean, these things, they were pretty rocking back in the day. You could almost say these were both the original convertible and original desktop replacement computer, which makes them really cool in my mind. Anyway, moving on, this is the Versa E, and this is where it starts to differ a bit. It has the same screen, and we're going to start talking about flaws. Now, the number one problem with all of these removable screen and even the non-removable screen NEC Versa is cracking plastic where the hinge goes. I'm going to do a video probably sometime down the road where we're going to explore into what I've done to fix this problem and what the best methods are. I've seen Bejo Vision. He uses some kind of epoxy. He didn't really show much of it. B Bishop PCM, what he did is he took some gum in here and just flood filled the whole area with E6000 or Titebond. Actually, it was Titebond one-shot epoxy. What I did was I thought of cosmetics. I was like, let's try and fix this with JB Weld because it's a pretty close match. It actually doesn't look too bad from a distance, which is fine with me. I mean, because my laptops, I don't keep these as collector's items entirely. These are used. These are plugged in. They're run. I put DOS on them. I put a Windows on them. I put OS2 on them. I put Linux on them. I run them like freaking, and for something that's nearly 30 years old to do as well as these have, that's pretty amazing. But yeah, cracking plastic is the number one problem. That's one reason I'm not a fan of the Ultralite version, is just because of the fact that it seems the earlier version of the plastic was about a couple shades darker, and it seems like it was way more brittle, and it was also far more brominated because they put bromide in these plastics, and I think it evaporates out or rises the surface, and it leaves open holes in the structure, and it causes it to crumble. That's like the basic explanation. I don't know. I might be wrong, but that's just my theory on how that works. Of course, the Versa E, and I almost ended up in an argument in the comment section. Well, I wouldn't say it was an argument. Minor tiffy, I guess, over B Bishop PCM. Because me and him, I watched him take his laptop apart before I took it apart. My laptop and his Versa V50 are exactly the same. His is 40 megahertz. Mine's 40 megahertz. His has the same motherboard, same cards, same Cmos battery attachment, same screen attach. I mean, they literally. I could probably compare serial numbers, and they wouldn't even be that far apart. If NEC was using sequential serial numbers. But the first way to tell that it's a Versa E is it just says Versa here. And there's a little history behind this that I found on Google Books, and that's that when NEC went to go make the Versa E, they decided to drop the Ultralite because it made the model name more complex than it needed to be, and I agree. Also, I feel like Ultralite is a misnomer. All of these laptops weigh between 6 and 8 pounds when loaded with batteries and floppy and hard drive, and that's not that ultralight. The original Ultralite was, like around 4. It got like 8 hours of battery life, weighed around 4 pounds, and ran off of AA's. These need like a 12-cell nickel metal hydride battery weigh about 7 pounds, and they run anywhere between 1.5 to 8 hours, depending on if you have 1 or 2 batteries installed, and depending on if you're monochrome color, and how many PCMCIA cards you have installed, and how new your hard drive is, because I've learned putting newer hard drives in my M75 and P75, you can get quite a lot of battery life out of these. I mean, I got almost 2.5 hours in FreeDOS with these, which is amazing for a 30-year-old computer. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the E some more. So, of course, it's got the removable screen. That can be told by the latches up here. When B. Bishop was talking about this, I can confirm for him that, yeah, this is indeed a cover for the stylus, because the touch version has a 1/8 inch phono port on the side here, and there's a stylus that you can snap into there. You basically can flip this screen over and use it like a tablet. And I have one of those touch screens, and I'm restoring it. It's for my M75. When you look inside, of course, as you've probably been staring at this most of this video, this one has the active matrix screen in it. You can tell because it's got one slider. These only ever came with the 640 by 480 screen, by the way. And then we move down to the controls. Another way you can tell it's a Versa E or an Ultralite, because the Ultralite and the one way you can tell it's a Versa E and not an Ultra, or Versa E and not an Ultralite or any other model, is that one, it'll have these silk screen logos next to the power and standby switches, which I'll explain that in a moment. And it's the only one that has that silk screening there for the switches and has a Versa-Track trackball. Because this was where they introduced it, was with the Versa E. And the Versa E, I suppose, stands for enhanced, because the original Versa, of course, it came with a regular 486 processor, 486 SL, I might add, 3.3 volt. It's the same thing as a 486 DX, but with low power requirements. That's part of the big deal on these, is they were literally desktop performance oriented. This version has the 486 DX2 SL in it. This one has a 40 megahertz, so it's a 20 megahertz bus. They also came with a 25 megahertz bus on the PC420 and on the PC4 or the PC44. I'll talk about the model numbers later. I'm stumbling with my words. So the next thing we're going to talk about here is, of course, you have the status bar there. This pretty much remains mostly unchanged from model to model. You might find some of them they're cracked. It's not really useful unless you're using batteries or if you're trying to see if your hard drive's in action. But these switches, this does not function like a regular laptop. Like most modern, I could see any modern day kid getting into retro DOS gaming and seeing an NEC Versa and pressing this and going, it doesn't work. Yeah, that's because these are both universal signals for power. This is the older one and this is the newer one that you see on modern computers. That means power button. I know this because I made the mistake when I bought this exact computer, and I was sitting there the first day like, why isn't it powering on? Why isn't it powering on? And I thought, oh, I'll try the slider above it. Whoop, and it powered right up. So the power switch on this one is, the slider. But it works like a modern computer. I mean, it just charges a capacitor, and then once charges hit, boom. Another common feature to all Versa is this memory door. It varies in length. The Ultralite has a longer one than the E does. And they kind of return to that same long door on the Versa V, which I'll talk about next. It's hard to get off. So I'll put my thing in my mouth, and here you go. So you open this door, and on this Versa E, you can see right now, I'm going to top it out later at 20 megs. So all these Versas had 4 or 8 megabytes of memory on board. The Versa Ultralite, Versa E, and Versa V all had 4 megabytes on the motherboard. The Versa M and P had 8. And so you get more memory by adding these little 3.3 volt expansion cards to the computer. This one has a 4 megabyte official NEC card in it. There was also, they made by Kingston and other brands. I actually have Kingston cards in my other ones. I have the 8 meg and the V. So this one has a total of 8 megabytes of RAM in it, because there's 4 on the motherboard and 4 on the card. And then your hard drive is under here, and it's pulled out in a little caddy, much like what they call a mobile rack. back in the day. So we'll close this cover. There we go. And I've got a few loose hard drives over here. Now what you'll see when you pull that hard drive out is you'll just see this aluminum covered box with a little adapter at the end. And this is just this is what's inside there. This is just your little standard 2.5 inch IDE 44 pin hard drive. And the early Ultralites, it appears, they used Seagate drives. This one's a 100 meg drive from the Ultralite that I got that pretty much flaked apart like a biscuit. This one is the original one for the EC. The EC now has a 540 in it, and if you got one of the 540 drives for any of these, or the bigger drives, I think there was also an 810, you got a little sticker on the bottom that said, do not use this drive in an Ultralite or a Versa E. You can disregard that now because there's dynamic drive overlays, which is what I've done with this. I put Max Blast on it, so I get the full 540 out of a pre-540 486 system. The majority of these are going to have IBM drives in them, like this one. There's an IBM OEM drive, so it'd be the same type you'd find in an IBM ThinkPad. This one is a 258 megabyte drive. It's got 989 cylinders, 16 heads, 345, 34 sectors per track. Doesn't say the land zone or pre-comp on there anywhere. And believe it or not, all the original drives that these Versas had, if they had one when I got them, still work. All of them do. I have the 540 from my M75 in this computer, the V50. This one, and they all came pretty much standard with MS-DOS and Windows 3.1 as the primary OS on almost all of them. At least that's what they originally had. A lot of these got upgraded in 95. Because these are actually pretty capable on 95 or even 98 SE. I had 98 SE on my 40 EC, and it actually performed really well without even putting 98 Lite on it. Just kind of amazing, considering this is a 1994 era laptop. The keyboard. It's not the best feeling keyboard on the planet, and these all use the exact same keyboard across all lines, so if one blew up, I could throw the keyboard from another one into another one. And it's rubber dome. It's not the most amazing thing. A common problem with the Versa, though, I find, is the space bar has a tendency to stick, especially if it's a really well-used one. This one used to stick. I spent probably about 2 months just using this thing hard and typing a lot to get that space bar to return like it does. It's not very clicky. It's actually very quiet. If you type really slow, you can actually, like, nobody knows you're typing next to them. Of course, that's the latch. On these screens, you could flip it around and turn it into a tablet, by flipping the latch around. So you take the screen off and flip it the other way, and it latches in. The 40E also came with touch right off the bat. It was a 3, and you can kind of tell because if it's a touch model, this right side bezel here is a lot more beveled, but there's only one slider. There's a 1/8 inch phono jack on the side for the stylus, and this entire screen assembly has been shifted over about like 1/8 of an inch or more because there's a whole circuit board down this side. And another easy way to tell is there'll be no cracking there because the circuit board adds extra rigidity to the chip case. So this is kind of what it looks like on these. And this Versa E is a well-used one. It was from some guy who worked at Ford Motor Company. Like I said, business class. Over here you have your battery, which is a 7.2 volt, 3400 milliamp hour or 3800 milliamp hour nickel metal hydride battery. This one doesn't work. We'll pop those out so you can see the insides. Right here is the PCM CIA slots. This is another common problem is the doors on these the latches for them tend to snap, and sometimes the doors tend to break off. I've thought about doing a little cottage industry thing and learning how to mold these so people can get replacements. Looking back here at the other ports, right here is your docking station port, which as you can see the latch has fallen off. And it just slides up in there, and then it allows you to plug it into your NEC Versa docking station. And talk about a great connector here. I swear to dear God, Dell, you need to go back in the past and look at this kind of stuff. Maybe you'll stop having so many warranty claims on your current laptops because of USB-C. The power port, which is a 13.4 volts to 1.5 or 2 amp power supply. There were two versions of this. That's another thing you tell. Ultralites came with one that was literally like almost as long as the screen and about as big as it was as big as a brick, literally. And it was one of the main critiques on the original model. So they went to the new style, which I have right here. That's about, like half the size. 13.4 volts. I'll try and maybe I'll post a pinout right over here. But yeah, that's the power supply connector. And you can actually still buy these on eBay for like $5. That's one of the reasons I went with the Versa for my retro laptop, is because you can still get parts for them. You can still buy, like screens for these things and memory and you can get hard drives at work with them that are bigger than anything that was out when they were new. Over here is another door that's often missing, the one for the ports. You can also tell models apart by this. So the Ultralite and Versa E had the same ports. You had a PS2 mouse port, or PS2 keyboard port, PS2 mouse port, VGA port, serial port, and a parallel port. And you can run the VGA using the function keys on the keyboard, both at the same time as the LCD or either or, basically. And this one still has its latch on it. There's your hard drive bay. There's your little spot for key lock. You can see my hackneyed early repair on there. I've gotten way better at this. Floppy drive. And there's some differences in parts, and I'll talk about the differences on those later when we get to comparisons. But the Versa, Ultralite Versa, Versa E, and Versa P all use different hard drives, or all use the same battery and same floppy drive. Once you get to the Versa M and P models, it's a bit different. But yeah, they're exchangeable. And I'll talk about functions later too, with the one that's got a screen on it. So we'll put the Versa E. I think we'll put the Versa E in the docking station over here, just for the heck of it. I haven't run it in a while, and she probably needs run. So we'll power her up with my new monitor. There you go. Plus I need some noise in here. Now this is the newest one that I grabbed. It's a Versa V. I only ever hear about these being 95 models, but I believe they came after the E, or they were used to use up E parts after the E was discontinued. We'll just put her in the BIOS. We'll talk about the BIOS later. So this one's a Versa V 50. You can tell the difference between it and the others, because here's my Versa M. You can see the screen here on the V is far more rounded, and there's no open spot for the latch to be flipped over. Also back here, you don't have the little latches for anything. So it's pretty much free of any sort of screen latch. Completely redo that part. So go back. This is the Versa V. It does look a bit different from the Versa P in some ways, or the Versa E, I mean. It's like alphabet soup with these laptops. Anyway, we're going to look at the top. This is the M75. The P75, these have screens that can be switched around. This one doesn't. That's what makes this a Versa V. Versa E stood for enhanced. Versa V to me stood for in value. I might be correct on this. I might not. I don't know. Anyway, as you can see, this is a Versa V. It's had the same problems as the E series did. I fixed this with a much more refined method using baking soda and super glue. This is how far I've come in 3 years on figuring these out. It also finally started announcing the model number on the label, as you can see here, if I can get the light just right. Versa V50. It actually says the model on it. And on these you could, because, this particular laptop actually didn't have a removable screen, as you can see, because this has the latches on it on the M75, but on the V50 it doesn't have any sort of latch. And you open it differently too, like on my M75 over here. Get that. You see you have this push button here to release the screen. On the Visa, on the V50 though, you had, or on the V series, you had this. Anyway, the V series and E series are very similar. Basically, this whole base unit on down is the same as the E40 EC or 40. And I've read there was a 40 megahertz model of this as well. So there's a V40, a V50, and then a V75. There's also a 40E, 40E, 50E, and 75E, and they all share the same parts. They have the same graphics chipset. So if you watch Bejo Vision's video going over the innards on these on detail, what's inside his is what's inside this, and what's inside my 40EC is, say, for the processor speed. I mean, they're pretty much identical models. It's just these were made to be a little bit cheaper. I think like they went as low as 1,500 and as high as 3,000, which is almost half the cost of one of these guys over here. Having a little water. Anyway, this is the most defining thing to tell the difference between a Versa V and a Versa E or any other model is the latch mechanism. This whole latch mechanism sits up here, and of course there are holes in the palm rest for the latch mechanism to go into. Also, these came out a little bit after the E. I think they came out about mid-94 at the earliest, maybe late 94. This one's a 95. There were 3 models. Actually, let me go over the E-series models first. So, the Versa E, you had 4 different models. You had the PC440, which was the 40 megahertz model, the PC450, which was the 50 megahertz DX2 model, and the PC460, which was the DX475 model. And right there you can see the Versa Bios, and I'll talk a bit about that in a little bit. And as you can see, I've reduced the memory, so of course it doesn't want to play ball with me right now. It's like, how dare you lower my memory? Anyway, the Versa V does have some improvements over the E. First off, non-removable screen. It seems like it does take to travel a lot better, and this part doesn't seem to crack as much, although Bejo Vision said his did, so, you know, I'd probably be more apt to listen to Bejo Vision, especially since he was selling these when they were new. As you can see, mine's plugged in. It says the battery is charged, but I'll show you how to see if you have a dead battery. I'm going to unplug it real quick and pull that, and you can see this is what a Versa does if the battery is bad, and you charge it all the way. And then you pull that trigger, and it doesn't do anything. And now, as you can see, it's reading just 1 mark. And if it's blinking, it means it's charging. And there's actually 2 of these battery icons. This one is for the main battery bay on this side. The other one is for that side, and they correspond with the side. All right, here's your power switch. If you hit that, you can see it boots right up. That's your power status indicator. Trying to do this without glare. That's your power status indicator, that faucet. There's your floppy drive indicator, pops up right there. There's the hard drive cylinder indicator. And you have like your caps lock and your num lock and your scroll lock all pop up right about there. This one right here, if it's just showing like just gushing water, it means power management is off, and it changes to different drip icons based on what's in the manual. So of course, as you saw, is the power switch. There's the BIOS, or actually it's booting into FreeDOS right now. I'll just abort and skip that CD-ROM driver. It's not loading anything. This one runs FreeDOS 2.1. Down here is the keyboard. This one is the nicest keyboard I've got. Spacebar doesn't stick, and there's no glossiness on these keys whatsoever. I don't know what happened to this thing. It came to me, it had no hard drive in it, no memory in it, and they said it came from like a PC repair shop. But it looks like this thing has never been used, and it was the same story with my M75. They were in really nice shape for their age. I mean, this one's like almost like brand new. There's like no glossy spots on any of the keys, not even the space bar. The space bar is really smooth on this one. So, I think these had better keyboards when they were newer, but once they've been used for a while, then they start to deteriorate. It's got the Versa track, which works perfectly. I'm going to shut it down with the same lever. And if you look under the memory door, and this is something that I don't understand why they didn't do it with all of these. And yeah, it's really a thing. So I'm going to kind of show you a trick to get the memory door open on the Versa really well. After I knock down a few objects and, you know, make myself look really stupid. So you want to press on these two right here, because this is where the two latches are, and that keeps them from snapping off. And then you use this ridge with your fingernail and just sort of push it off like that. And then when you look in here, here's your, you can see I have my 8 megabyte memory module for a total of 12 megabytes of memory. Right here is your Cmos battery in the Versa V. These do not use a CR2032. These use a CR2430. This one's a Sony, which I bought in a Nuon pack from Batteries Plus Bulbs. Yeah, they still sell these. It was only like $1. Can't beat that. And then anyone who's curious of what the dip switches do. Beja Vision didn't even go over this in his video. The first switch, I'm going to try to remember this off the top of my head. I'd just written it out the other day. So let's go right to left, because I'm having trouble remembering what the first switch does. So this very last switch is factory only. The next one over from the right is for international or US keyboard. Right now it's set to US keyboard, of course, because we're in the United States. The next one over is the BIOS CMOS password override, which I have set up. And that's how you, if you get a Versa, which has a BIOS password, which is very likely because these seem to have been commonly used in corporate environments. Dip switch number 2, the second one from the left, is the one you just flip up and it overrides it. This one had a BIOS password, that's why I had to override it. And I really needed to do that because I added memory and changed the hard drive, put a 540 meg. The PC7, these models are a little bit separate from the others. As you can see on the bottom, this one's in such mint shape, it's still got the original stickers on it. They didn't change anything between this and the Versa E on the bottom. It's still got the switch right here for taking the floppy out, this one for taking out the battery. And then up here is the screws. And all of them have the same screw. Well, actually, no. This one does a lot like the Versa P75 does. It doesn't have a screw there, so it is a little different. Going over here, of course, here's your model number. This one is a PC710 1541. So the PC710 is the 50 megahertz model. I'm guessing the 40 megahertz model is the PC700, and then the 720 is the 75 megahertz model. So, and there's your serial number. I am to believe that the first digit is the year of the laptop, because my Ultralite was 3. I think that one, the E, which is in here, starts with 4, and these two start with 5, just like my V, so they're both 95 models. Power supply specs. Right here is a really cool memory, or really cool expiration sticker. It says expiration date 4/17/96, so this had like a 1-year warranty. Registration number 287015, and the toll-free service number with access code 632. So kind of cool to see the original service tag on here for that. And then, of course, you have your obligatory 1990s, well-worn nickel metal. Actually, it's stating NiCad, but the NiCad batteries are actually the bridge batteries up and back here. And for those of you that don't know or haven't seen the other videos I've watched on these computers, the bridge battery is a battery that's located right up here on the Ultralite. It has 2 of them, one here and here. And what they do is when your battery would go dead on one of these old laptops and you're traveling around, it give you about 5 minutes to take that main battery out and put another battery in, and can proceed to do whatever you're doing. So that's kind of the ins and outs of the Versa V there. And these were made from 94 to 95, and they're pretty good little goers. They don't have sound. They do have a DX2 or DX4 depending on the model, like I told you, and that's pretty much the Versa V for you. We'll move on to the next one. I'll just keep my power cable handy. favorites, and I can talk about the next laptop that I use. Now we're moving into my favorites, and this one is fighting with the P75 for favorite, because I really love 486 era stuff. This is the last 486 model series NEC made. It was the last model in this series they made that have 486. This is the NEC Versa M75, PC470 model. There's also a PC480 model that's an M100 that has the 100 megahertz processor. I'm having some debate. If anybody knows, maybe you could leave it in the comments. Does the M100 have OPL? Because that's one of the main things I'm going to go into on the M75 that has going against it as a DOS system. So, of course, same power adapter as all of them. That's why I can have so many of these and just use the same stuff on them. I only have 2 power supplies, but I have 4 laptops. And if I do decide, which is quite likely, to pick up other ones, and yeah, this is kind of a pain. This is the thing you don't get to do with modern laptops anymore, thank God. One-way connectors. So of course you press the button there, it pops open. This one of course has a screen from my 40EC in it. You can see it still has it on the model tag, Versa M75, Intel inside. This is just the non-touch screen. I have a touch screen for mine from the previous one that I'm restoring. You can see it looks a little bit different. I mean, just like the V, it has the molded in indicators. You can also see there's a pinhole here. That's for your microphone, and that's for your internal speaker. It also has the short memory door, just like the Versa E. Same keyboard, same everything else, except this one, the latch isn't busted. It's actually in perfect condition. Actually, everything on this laptop is like it was brand new, save for the video circuitry. Oh yeah, and the trackball on this one I had to build. I had to rebuild it. This one has a 640 by 480 screen, and we'll power it on now. You can hear that speaker making its noises. And there it goes. This one has a 80 gigabyte Seagate Momentus hard drive in it, and it's got 24 megabytes of RAM in it. As you can see, if I pop the cover, that's the 12 megabyte module that was in my 40EC. And these differ grandly, and I'll get into it in a minute, from the earlier models in some respects. One of them is memory maximum size. So that's the biggest module you can fit in a Versa V, Versa E, or Ultralite Versa. They have a maximum of 20 megs of RAM. The M75 has a maximum of 40, and we'll talk about that later. This one is my Microsoft machine right now. So you can see I have DOS and Windows 3.11 and Windows 95. So let's do Windows 3.11 for groups undocked. Let's get rid of the 95 boot screen. This is running on top of 95, I might add, with the whatchamacallit. But it runs pretty good. And you can see the screen is bright. This is that highlight feature I was telling you about that makes the screen really bright. Yeah, and this is my rebuilt. And this is the chipset it has. It has a Crystal CS4231 audio chipset. It only does digital audio. It does not have a Yamaha sound chip in it or any sort of way of playing MIDI audio at all. Even though the drivers have it for it, I haven't been able to get it working. So there we go. This one you might notice, this was the one enclosure originally had the 640 by 480 12 screen in it that was shifted down a little ways. I put the 06 in here for right now. I'm going to try to fix the 12 panel before I put it in here and then keep one of these as a spare. But yeah. This one too, it looks like it's seen some use on the keyboard, but it's hard for me to tell if it's my doing because I use these things and I type like Eddie Van Halen right-hand hammer-ons, so I tend to really make my keyboards really glossy really fast. But yeah, you can see it's got a nice little screen. Oh yeah, and I didn't tell about this on these Versa. Another common failure point is this little nubbin right here to come off. It doesn't seem to happen with the M or the P as much, but it happens with the earlier ones. What this nub does is it presses down on this little button and it makes the screen go off when you close the screen. So we'll close it real quick while it's running. and I'll show you the differences in batteries and stuff. So now we get to the M75 on the bottom, which we're going to work on it while it's open. First thing we notice is, of course, the model number. It's a PC570, and this one's an anomaly because I think there might be some later runs of the M series that were a 570, but this one was made before the other one, and as you can see, the serial number starts with 4, so it's a 94. There are a few other things made different here. First off is removing the floppy drive. You have this little latch lever here to do it, and then you have this slide bit here that's supposed to help push it out, which as you can see now, it's out a little bit more. So we'll push it just a hair. Another difference you can tell is that there's a little ridge here, and we'll pull the... Actually, I think I have the floppy drive already out. The battery right here already. So I might not need to bother my other one. Let's take a look. Let's take a walk on the wild side. Hey. Well, we'll pull the floppy out of the E. So on the Versa E, when you take the floppy out, it's just, you know, you can see the difference already. There's a notch on the M75 and P75 for the floppy drive because they're both two different drives, and we're going to try to get this one out and make you dizzy while we do it. So we're going to pull these two out and look at the difference. This is the M75 floppy drive, and you see it's got the longer extender piece on it, and this is the Ultralite EVP floppy. This floppy also is compatible with the P75. Yeah. So there you can kind of see the difference on them on top and see the difference in back. This helps you identify them without part numbers when unscrupulous eBayers or just eBayers who don't know what they're doing or don't know their parts come on there. Of course, you can see it just snaps right back in, not very easily. And then this one just sort of slides back in pretty easily too. There we go. I think that's the first time I had the floppy drive out of the V. Anyway, hopefully I'm not making you dizzy with all this. So we'll just snap that one back in, and there we go. As you can see now, that slide latch there doesn't go all the way. So now we're going to talk about batteries, and I already have one out. To get the battery, you do the centermost lever, and the battery just pops right out. Right here we have two original nickel metal hydride batteries from NEC. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things isn't the same. Yada yada. You know the whole drill. So this one. Oh no, wait. They are the same. Oh shoot. Why did I bother taking that one out? I thought I had the two types of NEC battery in here. I'm going to be doing a lot of editing. I want to say it like my Script Garage does. Right here you can already see a difference in the width of this in front. It's because the pinouts are different. This is the regular battery, which this one I popped open because I was planning to resell it. This is the one that would, or resell as in put new cells in it. And this one's the newer one. This is the one they call the Smart Battery because it's got these two extra contacts under here that act as kind of a primitive form of APM for the battery management. Whereas this one is just, you know, it has the 4 contacts. And the pinouts are exactly the same for the main 4. Right here, if we go back to this one's your positive contact. That's your voltage sense contact. This is the negative for bank A, and this is the negative for bank B. Because there's 2 banks of batteries inside the NEC Versa right here. As you can see, the positive connector runs up this side, up the first bank, and then it travels over to that side, up that bank. Then right here you have a thermistor, type deal that I think just senses heat when it starts getting full. It starts heating up, and then this cuts off the charge based off that pin there. And then you have these 2 negatives, which I think are actually joined together. Or not. No, they're not. You can see this one goes over here, and then this one goes through there. And you have 2 banks of 6 A cells each. So each one of these green tubes has 2 nickel metal hydride A cells in it. And then the smart battery is the same design, but it's got right under this same design, but it's got right under this battery. At least on the OEM ones, it's got this little door here that if I pop it open, it has a circuit board in there where the circuitry is. So that's the difference between the batteries. Considering I've blown that battery up M75 and P75 in the earlier versions. This is another one. I'm going to try the rejuvenation on it and hope it doesn't blow something up. I'll probably try it on one of my external boards. That's how I'm doing it. So open up the Versa M. This one's got a 486 DX475 in it, of course. As you can see, it runs Windows 3.1 fairly well. Nice bright screen with crisp graphics. I mean, this thing's pretty good, and it's got audio, digital audio. So that's the Versa M for you. And this was the last version of that had a 486 in it. So now we're going to move to my personal favorite, and I don't even have to plug it in, or not my only favorite, but one of them. Now we move to the last one. We're going to leave this one open, maybe even on, because, you know, comparisons. So now we get to the Nec Versa P75. This is the one that you saw me doing all the plastic repair on. You open it up, and here you go. And it looks pretty much the same as the M75, kinda. Oh yeah, mine runs on its battery. And you can see there were a few things made different on the P75. This one has the thinner screen. This one also has an 800 by 600 screen on it, not the 640 by 480 like my other one. But these screens are interchangeable. I could put the 800 by 600 in that M75, and I could put the 640 by 480 on my P75. And I'll go into the pros and cons of 640 by 480 versus 800 by 600 and the scaling down in a little bit here. Well, P75 boots up. She's probably cranky. She's been sleeping for over a month. I haven't been doing anything. You can see battery's got a full charge. It's happy. Okay, so the first difference you can kind of tell is the layout of this panel has changed. When you compare it to the M75, these two controls have been moved over. Now they're right under this. They did this because the circuit boards on these are different. So the circuit board on the M75, the thing that turns off the LCD right here, that's actually its own separate circuit board right over here on the M75 and earlier, but on the P75 they put it on the main processor board right here. They also relocated the microphone over here, and they kept the actual speaker in the same exact position. Then you can see this one's running Windows 95 right now, and this one's running FreeDOS. We'll just abort. I don't need that. Same keyboard thing. You can tell I've used this one a lot more. Yeah, the spacebar sticks on this one a lot. It's not doing so bad now, but sometimes she gets angry after a few days. And yeah, I'll show you the memory. This one is maxed out. This one has 80, just like the M75 has an 80 gig hard drive, but it has the 32 megabyte memory module. My God, is that like the most artistic memory module you've ever seen? Same array of dip switches. The Cmos batteries, I didn't go into that on these. So unlike the 2430 equipped V and M, or V and E and Ultralite, these have two different types of batteries. The Nec Versa M has a barrel battery in it. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, here's the original barrel battery from my previous M75 that fell apart. It's just a little barrel battery, and it fits somewhere around here on the metal cage inside the case. So it's proprietary, but I found this one I was able to actually use the connector from Cmos Battery, and this one uses a 2340, but it's on a wire with a Molex connector like a modern laptop battery. I just took a modern Dell laptop battery and wired it into the Molex here, and this thing's been running great like that. You can see it's 640 by 480 because you can see it's letterboxed over here, whereas my Windows 95 wasn't like that boot time. We're going to compare audio and some other stuff too. I'm going to go E:. There's M75. So this is a good way to show the difference in scaling. So going over to P75, same smart battery, same everything else, but the real difference between these two is I wouldn't have audio in Nesticle on M75 if it wasn't in Windows 95 or in Windows 3.1 Windows Sound System setup. This one has an ESS audio drive 688 Sound Blaster compatible chip under here, which makes, really to me, the P75 is the best if you want the best retro gaming experience on a laptop and you don't bother people in your house if you have sound on a portable laptop. Sometimes I like this better because it's just quieter in DOS. But now we're going to look at the scaling thing. Now the 800 older laptops were not really designed to scale. These both have the same chipset, a CNT 65545 Super VGA LCD controller. But this one has an NL8060, this is an NL6448. So this is 640 by 480, that's 800 by 600. And as you can see, they look drastically different under Nesticle. Actually, under this one, you can actually see the Windows cursor, which is kind of hilarious. Here, Ricky. Let's go pick a game. It's trying to pull up my screensaver. So let's go back and I want to pick a Dragon Quest game for this. Let's pick one with a good soundtrack. So we'll go here. Another thing you notice is this is in Windows 95, so let's see how Dragon Warrior 4 works on this. And Ricky wants out. Editing. Let's just go run the original Dragon Quest, actually. So we'll go over here. Yeah, I have a lot of ROMs. This is from like decades ago. So there's Dragon Warrior on the M75. And you can see it has a problem with volume. So you use function F6 to turn the volume up and down. And it doesn't really control volume on the Crystal chipset very well. Tends to handle higher frequencies better. I'm just going to do this. So, as you can see here, in 640 by 480, it cuts off the text. It's also a little performance crippled because it's running under 95 during this. So emulation, it really, you can see it's cut off there. And then you see how it cleaned up when I went full volume, and it sounds nice now. So we'll mute that one. We'll go under here, under this one, which went to sleep. So we'll load ROM. Let's go ahead and go down here. And next thing you notice, I don't have long file names enabled in FreeDOS. I'd rather have free memory. Now let's go under 5. And you hear how much better that sounds? Low volume. Sounds much better through this one. As you can see, it's letterboxed. That's a perfectly fine function in my book because I can see the whole screen. And it actually looks halfway decent. So that's kind of the comparison there in audio. And this one doesn't have OPL. So I can't really show you anything with OPL audio in it. Let's load a saved city. Why not? Dude, Jaguar Valley. Here we go. You can see how clean and crisp that is. Actually, the webcam doesn't do it justice. A plant nearing death. And here I've got the digital audio on it. So yeah. And this one, of course, being a Pentium, it's got all the, bells and whistles and fast-moving stuff on it for a moment. So this is SimCity 2000 on the Versa M75. So you can see there's no music. What we do have is digital audio. At least if I turn it up. New city. Let's do this. And as you can see, I can play it under Windows 95. And it runs pretty good. Yep, and there's your digital audio. So I'll just kind of show you SimCity on here. Now we'll go look at a CD-ROM game on here. Let's go to CD/. Here's the 7th guest.
Back for more?
Yes. There you go. You load. Ricky's in here. And then you can see I'm kind of at that puzzle right there. You see the graphics performance is actually pretty good, although it's letterboxed. But also I heard there was a version of the 7th guest that actually had Windows Sound System support in DOS, so I could run it on here. Like, this will run a lot of Sierra titles with the digital audio portion enabled. It's actually fine when I'm playing games late at night. You can see the 7th guest works on this, and I run it off of a virtual ISO and FreeDOS. That's how I'm running it, most of these on these old computers. It's kind of nice is these machines are also so universal. I can take the hard drive out of this, put it in this, just reconfigure the setup file, and all the games that run on this will run on this seamlessly with almost no effort. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and say farewell to the 7th guest for a moment, and then we're going to go over here and see if I can get Diablo working. Alright, so here we go. Let's play some Diablo. We're doing exactly what the manual states not to do. We're running Diablo on a 486. As you can see, under 95, it's not doing too bad with the video. About what I would expect. Maybe a little more. It picks up speed after that first animation. So, and she runs Diablo pretty well. Here we go, we have the Diablo on here. So this is, what it's like to run a M75 Diablo. It's taken it a couple of moments. I need to also tune 95. There you go. You can see animations there. Let's go in here. It's taking a few minutes to load. That's the one thing about the M75 is it's a little bit slower than the Pentium. It's pretty obvious that it's not a Pentium. Alright. Now let's go to... So we're messing around in different games, just kind of showing off what these machines can do. You can see it's loading off of a virtual CD-ROM, so it's there. And you have this guy. I mean, these both are pretty close to the same. I'm going to eventually bump up the RAM in this to 32 because it's, or up to the full 40 because it'll behave a lot better that way. Still gets it's still my DX4 desktop has a small edge over it because my desktop has 2 megs of VRAM and a DX4 100, but only has half the level 2 cache because it's an AMD. So, whereas this has the genuine Intel one with a 16K level 2 cache in it. And you can see it's not too terribly bad. I think, here we go. Now we're getting audio. I've had some hilarity with this one where I'd run Diablo and it would actually like play at like half speed. So you can see it's not too terrible. It's playable at least. So, let's see. And then there's the shutdown of this one, which I'm going to shut down. We'll put the V up here. And let's go down here. Let's go shut down. It doesn't take that long to shut the M75 down, but we're going to go ahead and hit that. Yeah, so I actually built this Versa-Track. I took the whole darn thing apart and did the little tiny spindles. It was tedious and it was tricky, but it works. So, there we are. This is a weird thing that it does after it shuts down 95. It just decides to dump graphical garble on the screen to DOS. Let's actually explore this a little. CLS. Yep, so it just dumps it out to DOS. We're going to close it. Let's bring the V up here. Just figured run them all today, even the 40. So here's the Versa V. This one's a DX250, so there's an even bigger gap in performance between this one and that one. And this one has no sound. So as you can see, I booted up. Both of these are running FreeDOS 1.2. This one's only got the 540 meg drive. This one has an 80 gig in it. So yeah, that kind of goes over what I use these for. I'm going to shut down the P and save its battery. So you can see we've been running this whole time. Oh yeah, I hit the suspend button, so there it goes. It goes to sleep. If you hit that again, it goes back up. And as you can see, it just takes it a few moments, and then it just powers right back up where you left off. And if you want to shut it off, you have to hit this button. There you go. And it shuts down, and there's your Versa P. Now, Versa V. Because it's not docked. So, here's the Versa V. And then I'll talk a bit about LCD panels here real quick. So the LCD panel, so you can see it's flickering here when it's in text mode. I'm seeing this. It's not a thing from the camera. It's actually the screen. So there are multiple revisions of the NEC NL6448 AC30 panel for these. This one's the revision 10, and I find the revision 10 tends to have this flickering problem with it. So if you get a V or a V50 or an M75 or a P75 with the 640 by 40, keep that in mind. The screen might flicker a little bit. It goes away when I run some games, like if you go to CD/games/ let's play some Hoyle card games. So you can see the flickering still goes on, the black in the background. You would have audio, but I shut it off. This is actually what I like to play to go to sleep to when I'm not playing those games that save on my cell phone bill. So let's bring up some volume. You can hear some play game. So let's bring it back up. So we got. So you can see, though, once it's up and going, it doesn't look so bad. I mean, you know, I can go ahead and play Hoyle card games here. Playing this one-handed is incredibly difficult. It's a little easier with this version just because of the fact that I can right-click. Yeah, commit a few illegal moves embarrassingly on here. I actually like this version of Hoyle card games. As you can see, that's the Versa V. It runs pretty good. Some of these BIOSes also differ. I mean, the Versa V has a slightly more crippled BIOS, which goes in line with the Versa value thing that I talked about. But we're going to go look at my Versa E now, which has the BIOS up on CRT because it doesn't have an LCD right now. Oh yeah, and if you ever wondered about the backlights in NL6448, one of the bad screens, I saved the good cold cathodes out of it and the power supply board. I Frankenstein stuff a lot. It's just a way I keep these things running, you know. It's a word of wisdom. If you're getting into vintage computers like I have, you get to a point where they're kind of like, they're almost like old cars in a way. You have to kind of, when I first started in this in the 2000s, you just went out, you bought an old PC, you bought 4 or 5, you had parts forever, you didn't have to fix anything with a soldering iron or JB Weld or anything else. But with nowadays, as vintage computers get older, you're going to need to start using your soldering iron and your lightning cover and all that stuff a little more when you're working on them. It's just what you got to do, you know, when you get into this stuff. Now, as we go up here, we're going to talk a little bit about the BIOS, and then probably I'm pretty much done covering everything on these laptops, and then I'll probably maybe mention a few things, and then we'll go. So here's the NEC Versa BIOS. Typically, it only gets triggered if a system change is made, like on my 40EC here, where you see the memory has gone down because I took the 8 meg module, it's in my V over there, and took it out and put it in the V and put a 4 meg in here. See, it says 8 megabytes of memory. It used to be 11. Power management is set to high. I don't know why. Diskette drive A and diskette drive 1 is type 19, but it's got an overlay on it. To access, and these BIOS can be really confusing when you first use them because it doesn't, you know, if you fail to read anything, the real trick, and I'll just save you the time. The way you get to things is you press the Alt key and the highlighted white letter of the beginning of whatever category you're going under. So on this one, let's take a look at Alt-C for comms. This is your COM port, their memory address, and interrupt assignments. Also useful to have that information if you're configuring other PCMCIA hardware. You can configure your parallel port mode. So this would be one I can play around with a little bit once I get rid of camera glare. So say you just use the highlighted cursor and then you hit Alt and then one of the things. And you can see I can set it to unidirectional, bidirectional, or enhanced. I can change, you know, the COM port settings. You have drives, Alt-D. It's got set drive types, but you also can set a custom drive type if you need to. It allows you to boot off of PCMCIA, which is handy if you're like wanting to use PCMCIA cards as your boot drive, which I think is a possible use case for these. I mean, it gives you like the candy store for options on all these models have pretty similar BIOS. It might be a little different from one to the other. As you can see, it has a 144 meg floppy installed. If I go out of here, we go into keyboard. I'm not sure what key, you can change the type-matic rate setting as usual, numlocks. System passwords disabled, of course. Alt-P, this one's actually an important one, especially on certain ones. So power management is set to high for disconnected. It's disabled under AC. The Versa V has a slightly different one that's a bit more crippled. It basically uses the same power management settings for mobile and for docked, which I find a little weird. But the Versa E and all the others like this that are like the high-end ones, you know, have this listing. So you have high. This sets the power management for the system when it's undocked. When it's under AC or docked, you can change a certain power management setting controlled by the BIOS for that. System suspend mode, you have suspend, resume. I haven't really explored that one fully, so, but you can do that. You can also do save to disk. There's also a disable for your automatic save to disk, slow CPU speed when idle. This really caught me by surprise because this is basically an early version of Intel SpeedStep. Modern CPUs, you know, like the Core 2, Core i5, i7, or your Core 2 Duos even, had this setting called like Intel SpeedStep technology or CPU throttling. Well, they must have introduced this on the 486 SL. So it's able to actually change its CPU speed. I have it enabled on here, but sometimes if I'm gaming and I feel like it's causing problems, probably will do that to my M75. I'll disable it. Backlight has two settings, standard and full, if we look at it. Yep, standard and full. I always start it in full. Highlight, full. And highlight is when it turns the text stark white in DOS. Suspend warning tone, that's that horrific, that's that loud beep that you heard when the P75 went to sleep. So you can turn those on and off. Serial port ring, serial port resume on ring. That's probably if you have a modem. It's kind of like a wake on LAN type feature, which is kind of awesome. And resume on time of day, which I guess you can set a time of day for these to turn on and off. I mean, these are pretty amazing features for a circa 1990s laptop. A lot of these are really modern. Let's take a look at system real quick. You have quick boot and setup lock. I usually don't, I never use setup lock. Let's put it on quick boot. There we go. And then under Alt, time and date, and it's kind of important, I show you this. This thing's Y2K compliant. Even though the test program said it wasn't, it really is. Even though SpeedSys says it isn't, it is. Yeah, it's Y2K compliant. So, yeah. Awesome. If you go out here and you go to Alt About, it tells you about NEC setup software, copyright 1993, version 1.00.07. This one has, you know, various modules that get upgraded. So we're going to go ahead and just do Alt X, and exit save changes. Since this is my one, there's the boot sequence when it's powered on. It's got a Phoenix BIOS, BIOS version 1.01.11, which was the last BIOS version released. There's my Maxter Max Blast kicking in. And now let's scroll down here to Windows for Workgroups 3.11 docked. And of course it's going to fail the CD-ROM because it's still got the old... I had a DVD-ROM in this thing for a while, and I took it out and I put the NEC, the original NEC CD-ROM back in. It was just, you know, better for what I was doing for the time. Graphics chipset. And as you can see, now we're in Windows 3.1. Running under CRT power. And if you're wondering about the long wait, it's because, yes, this thing is network connected. Right now it's pulling an IP address off my home LAN. And I use these networked. You can see, so just sort of giving you a glimpse on what I use these things for. Oh yeah, and there's my Words Plus. I got it set up like that now because it's like a recording studio. I'd only use it when it's docked anyway. There's my login. So as you can see, it's got the standard software groups on here. Got, you know, internet, DOS games, and yeah, I know I have the raster lines, but this is actually pretty good considering this is a crappy old 2010 webcam run on an iMac from 2015. Got accessories, network, all the standard Windows 3.1 stuff. The NEC computers came with a standard accoutrement of NEC stuff, like I have the battery guide right here. It like teaches you about power sources like AC adapter. It even has pictures. And I actually converted these to PDF and put them on my website so you can actually view these. Like right there's a picture of, you know, 40EC. So this has also got to be one of the earliest cases of an online manual for a laptop. And I try to do this on all of mine if it's usable that way at least. You have the Ultra Care support with the support number. So warranty support. You have the PCMCIA information on here, which shows you about using PCMCIA. Ultra Care. Here's the user's guide. I mean, the complete manual. And I know it says Versa V on here, but this is the original manual that came with it. I don't know, so I could be wrong. Maybe someone who works for NEC could chime in and tell me about the debacle on the Versa V versus Versa E. This is the one part which makes me think the guy in B. Bishop's video was right, because when I look into the manual here, it came with a Versa V manual, and if I go ahead and go, let me see, back one. Let's go back here. Back. Getting to know your new information tool. Features. Let's go under there. LCD panel. Let's see if there's any pictures. So it shows you, you know, the LCD panel stuff here. But let me go back. Let's see here. Features. Back. Setting it up. Let's see if there's any pictures in here, because this could be really interesting. So as you can see here, it says it's for a Versa V. Well, if you notice something in the pictures in here of the Versa V in the manual, it doesn't look like this guy right here. It looks like this one right over here. So this is definitely a Versa V, and that's definitely a Versa E, because that's what the picture shows in the Versa V manual. So yeah, I was right. This is a Versa V. I'm a little Versa E instead of Versa V, like that over there. But I'm a little shocked. It does look like it has a 10.4-inch screen. That was something I didn't mention, actually, about the M75 and P75 I was sitting over there. They actually came later with a 10.4-inch 800 by 600 screen. So if you want a bigger screen on one of these, you can definitely get one too. You just have to get one of the late models. I don't know how compatible they are, because some of the swappable screens don't work with other models. Like you saw, I had that keyed one on my M75, but anyway. But yeah, this pretty much disputes. I think what they did was they put the V manual on this computer at Ford, because it basically is the same computer as that, just with a removable screen. So that's really the only difference between a Versa V and a Versa E, is that the E has a removable screen and the V doesn't. So yeah, the proof is in the manual. I mean, come on, that's not a Versa E. That's a Versa V. And that right there, down there in my docking station, is a Versa V, a Versa E. And yeah, let's take a look at it. I mean, this is where I was getting my info from too. If we go back, online manual, let's look at features. Actually, we could probably go back and find the specifications in here, probably somewhere. Main battery, bridge battery, online help. What's in the box? So here we go, and there's another picture of it, and you can see it doesn't have the removable thing on it. I know that seems ridiculous coming from Windows 3.1 pixelated picture, but yeah, and that's actually pretty impressive if you consider this was 1994. I mean, this was the time when CD-ROMs were a freaking premium. And you could get a laptop computer from NEC with its own online user guide. You didn't even need the little books with it. You just had these user guides. I'm going to put my website link on the pages when I edit this, so you've probably already seen them already by now. But yeah, that should be pretty much everything you ever wanted to know about the NEC Ultralite Versa 486 and early Pentium model laptops. And just to close out, here's why I went into these. So I wanted a retro platform that was small, did not take up a lot of space, and I could own multiples of the same thing for parts, and so I had multiples with different performance characteristics to use for different things. And I wanted them to be able to be usable as a desktop with a monitor sometimes if I wanted that experience. So that was the goal. You can still get batteries for these. They're about $50. You can get the smart or the dumb battery types. The dumb batteries also work in the newer models, strangely enough. Other things to mention about my use case. I don't just use these for gaming. I use them for DOS apps and stuff. And anyway, you'll probably see these on the channel in the future. Probably not so much with me using them in person, but more me just using them. So anyway, this is everything you ever wanted to probably know about the Versa V or NEC Versa product line for the first generation or PC4, 5XX models. Hopefully it shed some light on some stuff. Hopefully it wasn't too terribly long. Anyway, I will probably post some other stuff later. And this is creepingnet signing out. And hit like and subscribe if you like what I do. If not, oh, okay. Well, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and close this up.